Hi, I'm Dr. Bridget Finn. Welcome to Women Becoming. This is the show that celebrates and supports women as we navigate our journeys of transformation and reinvention at midlife and beyond. Welcome in. A woman's journey with grief, growth, and transformation in the wisdom years. Welcome into episode 2, Becoming Connie. For women in the wisdom years, losing a spouse, a partner, a mate represents far more than the death of a partner. It's often the dissolution of an entire life structure and personal identity built and constructed over decades. Widowhood is indeed common. It's a shared experience for so many women in their wisdom years. Yet its emotional weight is deeply personal and profound. We certainly know that loss is something we all encounter, and we know it never unfolds the same way twice. Grief has a way of reshaping us, stretching us beyond what we thought possible, and demanding that we step into a world that looks nothing like the one we knew before. Widowhood inevitably transforms. The loss of a woman's life partner reshapes her identity, her future goals and aspirations, and even her relationships with family and friends, making grief a transformative journey for women rather than just a statistical reality. The identity a woman cultivates over decades as wife, as part of a couple, as someone with defined roles and responsibilities within a relationship shifts. She's now facing a new landscape that demands navigation without her companion. Women are left confronting practical challenges, managing finances alone, making household decisions alone, and handling the responsibilities that maybe once belonged to her spouse, alongside the emotional work of the grief that she's experiencing. The intertwining of practical day-to-day partnership with deep emotional connection means the void left behind touches every aspect of her daily existence. In her wisdom years, a woman not only mourns the loss of her spouse, but also faces the reality of her own mortality, prompting deep reflection on the years ahead and the legacy she will leave behind. Physical changes for her at this time can further complicate this transition, as aging, as we know, brings shifts in strength, health, and independence, forcing women to navigate grief while adapting to a body that no longer feels familiar. Without her partner by her side, a grieving woman finds herself confronting the profound question, who am I now? The identity she built within love and companionship has shifted, leaving her to navigate a life that feels both familiar and unrecognizable, forcing her to redefine what home, purpose, and selfhood mean without her companion. In the silence of absence, she wrestles with the realization that while grief changes her, it also invites her to rediscover the depths of who she has always been and who she still has the power to become. Women begin weaving the threads of their past, including their marriage, their partnership, and the love that they shared, into a new fabric of life that honors what was while creating space for what might be. There is a reconstruction. It can involve developing new rituals and routines, forming new and different kinds of connections, discovering capacities for resilience and adventure they hadn't known they possessed, and sometimes even finding unexpected joy in their newfound autonomy. As women in their wisdom years process spousal loss, many discover capacities for strength and independence they never knew they had. And for so many, this painful reconstruction of identity often leads to new values, priorities, and even purpose. Of course, grief never disappears, but many women eventually discover it can coexist with purpose, meaning, and even happiness as they build lives that are now certainly different, but still rich with possibility. We must always consider the impact of patriarchy on the journey of the grieving woman. The societal context surrounding women's wisdom years adds layers of complexity to women's experiences with grief and loss. Patriarchy can dictate how a woman in her wisdom years is expected to grieve. maybe subtly pressuring her to carry loss with quiet endurance rather than openly expressing her sorrow or seeking support, treating her grief as an afterthought rather than honoring her lived experience, wisdom, and the profound emotional depth of losing a lifelong partner. We know that patriarchal narratives around aging diminish the visibility and vitality of older women, making it harder for widows to find spaces that truly honor both their sorrow and their continued potential for growth and renewal. Society can treat widows as incomplete or defines them by their loss rather than as women with continuing stories. Having conversations and providing an opportunity for women to share their grief and growth journeys serves multiple profound purposes. These conversations validate the complexity of their experiences, acknowledging that grief in later life carries unique dimensions, often overlooked in broader grief discussions and discourse. By sharing their stories, they transform private suffering into collective wisdom, helping each grieving woman recognize she isn't alone in her seemingly idiosyncratic emotions or coping mechanisms. Many women discover that articulating their grief journey becomes part of their legacy, transforming personal pain into communal wisdom that benefits others. These stories are living roadmaps for other women walking similar paths, offering comfort and practical guidance through and with territory that is uncharted. Women grieving in the wisdom years aren't just recipients of support. They are powerful agents of healing and meaning making. Their reflections on grief often reveal profound insights about love and mortality and resilience that can guide us all. Their stories are living roadmaps for other women walking similar paths, offering comfort and practical guidance through and with territory that is uncharted. Sharing women's grief stories honors not just what was lost, but also the invaluable perspective they've gained through weathering profound transitions while continuing to grow and find meaning. These shared conversations also challenge harmful cultural narratives around aging, widowhood, and women's resilience. They help dismantle the dangerous misconception that grief follows a linear timeline with clear endpoints. When women in their wisdom years articulate how grief evolves rather than disappears, it creates permission for all grievers to honor the ongoing relationship with loss. By amplifying women's voices, we recognize that their grief journeys represent vital human experience worthy of attention and respect. By sharing our stories, the darkness of loss and the unexpected brightness that can emerge is revealed. These conversations about our grief journeys respect the complex emotions of grief, the profound pain alongside the gradual rediscovery of self and newfound freedom. Creating an opportunity for grieving women to share their stories offers a space for connection, validation, and healing, a sense of community where wisdom is exchanged and resilience is strengthened. Without a space to express these experiences, women can feel isolated or pressured to internalize their sorrow. Inviting women to share openly, to be heard, and to receive support from others who truly understand their journey reinforces the idea that grief is not something to get over, but rather to honor and integrate into life. Women discussing their grief share insights about personal growth, unexpected joys, and way to move forward while carrying their loved one's memory. The act of storytelling can be deeply therapeutic, offering healing not just to the person speaking, but to others who may find solace and comfort in those words. Women in their wisdom years have rich life experiences and perspectives that deserve recognition, and their grief is a testament to the depth of love and relationships they have cultivated over time. By giving voice to their stories, we acknowledge the enduring significance of love and loss while encouraging broader conversations about how society can better support women that are grieving. These platforms allow women to embrace grief not as a solitary burden, but as a shared, meaningful part of life's journey. one that can lead to transformation and newfound purpose. Today, I'm delighted to be sitting with my dear friend Connie, a woman who knows this journey intimately. Nearly a year ago, Connie lost her husband, Frank, and with that loss came a profound shift in her world. But as Connie shares today, grief didn't just take, it also asked her to rebuild. And that is the story we're here to tell, not just one of sorrow, but of transformation. Grief is a path none of us choose, but one that inevitably finds us. And in sharing her experience, Connie offers not just a story of loss, but a testament to growth, resilience, and the quiet strength that emerges when we allow ourselves to fully feel and heal, while never, ever diminishing in any way the enormity of the loss. This transformative potential in our grief journeys represents the paradoxical opportunity within widowhood, which is the chance to emerge as a different woman who carries both her grief and her growth forward. Connie's journey is one of reckoning with absence while learning to embrace what remains and what can still be. She's walked through the quiet loneliness, faced the uncertainty of who she is without Frank, the man she built a life with, and yet she has emerged with a deeper understanding of herself. In our conversation, Connie shares what it took to move through the darkest days, the unexpected moments of growth, and the ways she reconstructed her life without leaving love behind. So important. She takes us into the heart of her grief, but also into the light that came when she least expected it. As you listen to Connie's journey, our hope is that something in her story resonates with you, whether it's a moment of reflection, a glimmer of understanding, or simply the comfort of knowing you're not alone. Even if one insight, one piece of wisdom, one shared emotion helps you move forward in your own transformation, then this conversation has done its work. Wherever you are in your journey, know that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying love forward in whatever way feels right for you. This episode isn't just about loss. It's about finding courage in the face of change. It's about honoring grief without letting it define the future. Connie's story is a testament to resilience, to the quiet yet powerful ways we rebuild ourselves after heartbreak. So settle in, because this conversation is one of hope, strength, and the wisdom that comes when life asks us to begin again. If today's conversation resonates with you, consider passing it along to someone who might need to hear it. You'll find links below to explore more, connect, and keep the conversation going. I am so delighted to be with you here today.
Me too.
I really am. Thank you for inviting us into your home to talk about your journey. I'm so grateful. And this is our second time around doing this, right? So I appreciate that. Now, you just got home from a huge journey in Italy. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of what that took for you to get to that trip?
I've always liked to ride my bicycle, and because it was not something that Frank was into, uh, I kind of gave it up. And then during COVID, I started riding again.
Yeah.
And just realized how much I loved it. And this opportunity came up to take this trip from Lucca, which is between Florence and Pisa, to Rome, about 300 miles, 10 days. And I thought, oh, I'd love to do that. So naively thinking I was in good shape and 50 years younger than I am, but it was an opportunity for me to start doing something that I had given up because of wanting to travel with Frank in a way that worked for him.
Yeah.
And so this was like a little out of my comfort zone because I hadn't done it in so long. And it was an incredible challenge that I did not realize it was going to be as much of a challenge for both physically, I think also mentally, um, realizing that I didn't have the same connections that I've always had when I've traveled, of being able to come home and share it with Frank and talk with him, or call him on the phone and say
Along
I'm
the
doing
way.
all right along the way and that kind of thing. And I haven't had that for a while with him, but it just was so evident to me on this.
You really felt that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's been long enough since he died June 20th of this last year that I'm more able to look back and say, oh, I wish. And for a while, that was not in the thinking that was going on for me.
Right. You're thinking, I wish what?
I wish that Frank could do this
Could do
with
this,
me,
be with me.
or that he would be around to hear and see what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
I think it's important that our audience know that Frank was a huge supporter of your global travels and your adventures. So I bet you felt a real void when you were away this time.
I have felt incredibly, incredibly fortunate that Frank never said, don't go.
He always
He
said, go.
always encouraged me to go.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that conflict going on in our relationship. He had been in the Air Force and had done a lot of the traveling through the Air Force, and he just wasn't interested in it in the same way that I
Oh,
was.
he was a huge fan of
Yeah.
your work
Yeah.
globally and you traveling and enjoying yourself. But how did you, this is a huge theme for women who lose a partner in the wisdom years, is how do you make space to apprehend joy while still honoring the pain? How do you live in both of those?
I'm not sure I think about it a whole lot. I think sometimes it just kind of comes up,
Yeah.
and then it's either I have to deal with it or set it aside long enough to then deal with it later. I don't like to just push everything down and not deal with it. I think that initially after Frank died, I'm the kind of person that wants to get all the paperwork and all of that stuff done
I remember.
right away
Yep.
and not have to deal with it. Everybody said, oh, take your time. You don't need to do it right away. But I didn't want to have that hanging over me. So in terms of grieving at that point, I don't think I let myself grieve as much as I had business.
You were getting stuff done. Yeah.
And I needed to get it done. I wanted to do a really nice memorial for him, and so there was the planning and everything else that went into that. And then I think once that happened, and all the paperwork was done, then it was a point at which I could sit there and say, okay, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
And
what was now? What did bring to you then?
I think that I've just kind of said, okay, a door's open, and I'm going to take whatever comes in that door. And so that's where this trip sort of came along. I have other trips planned too, but not anything as physical and strenuous. And as you know, because I had a serious bike accident 2 years ago, it was a real challenge to me to feel comfortable enough to take something like this on.
Enormous. It was a serious bike accident.
Yeah. I broke they say it was my hip. They say it was my leg. It's just, so.
What is that about you, though, that you were able to say, okay, a door has opened, don't know what the hell is in this door or beyond this door, but I'm open to it. This is part of you.
Yeah. Um,
How did you get that kind of reserve, that curiosity?
I don't know.
Right.
I really don't know. I think I watched my mother growing up. Um, she liked to travel, and so we went camping and traveled in the US. My father didn't want to really go overseas, so
Mhm.
they didn't really do that. But I think I had some of that from
Already,
mother.
yeah.
My mother was, I think she wished that my father wanted to do more things with her, similar to me with Frank,
Mhm.
but she adapted and made it work so that she could do the things that she wanted to do as well,
Yeah.
and do it with the family. And I think all of us have the travel bug.
Yeah. So it was already there for you.
Yeah, so it's not out of my comfort zone
Yeah.
to decide, oh, I'm going to just go off and take a trip.
Yeah.
Uh, I always have anxiety before I go.
Yeah. And you do it anyway.
Um,
I want to
yeah,
I want to let the audience know that this trip you're speaking of with Italy, you sent me an email
yeah,
saying you had a dream that was disturbing, it was unsettling,
yeah,
and about going to Italy, holding everyone up, ruining of other people's time. And then you ended the email with, screw it, I'm doing it anyway.
yeah,
Right. And I said,
yeah,
well, there's Connie. Right. Right.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that sort of resilience, tell me about that with you and going through your journey with grief.
I'm finding more and more that I constantly, not constantly, but often I'm talking to myself.
Okay.
Um,
Helping yourself along.
maybe even out loud on the bicycle. It's like I'm on this bicycle on this little narrow trail, and it's like, Connie, you can do it. You can do it. You can hold it steady. You can do it. You're fine, you know? And I find that that kind of thing runs in my head anyway, that even though I might be afraid about how to do something, um, I have this sense that it's worth pushing through to come out the other side. Um, where I stayed in Rome, I stayed in this, it was a family run hotel in a building that had other people living in the building. And right across the street was this incredible church.
Mm.
And it was a Sunday when I first got there. So I went into the church and the mass was going on. And I sat down to enjoy the music and listen to them sing and all the rest. And then as I was leaving, I saw this sign and I figured out, reading the date right, because they put the day before the month, that Carmarina Burana, which is one of my favorite orchestral choir pieces, was being done that night.
That's not a coincidence.
So I'm there going, oh my God, how do I get a ticket? You know? And so I went up to this very nice young man and I said, can you help me get a ticket? You know, because it was all in Italian and I, like, I don't know. So he helped me get a ticket and it was just, it was wonderful.
You put yourself out there.
And I was so pleased that I could, ask somebody and have a good response.
What are you proud of with what you've done, accomplished, what you've been open to? What are you proud of in your journey?
I think one of the biggest changes for me is I don't think I realized quite how much I was dependent on Frank's support.
Okay.
His rock bass. And so not having that on a trip like this was like, I think, just disconcerting to me. And I don't think I realized quite how much it was. Realizing I didn't have him to communicate with, or to come back home and tell about, or just
Just knowing he was out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I find, and I have found, I like text messaging
Yeah.
because I can send photos, I can communicate with
Quickly.
people along the way quickly, and widen my support, my connections. Because at one point, when I finally did decide I was going to ride in the van, and and I was beating myself up in the process, I sent a text to two individuals. One guy who's an avid biker,
Mm-hmm.
who helped me figure out what kind of pedals and shoes to have for this trip. And the other woman teaches a spin class, and I go to her spin class all the time. And so I emailed both of them with some pictures, and just, said, this is difficult.
What the hell am I doing? So you actively, intentionally participate in
Yeah,
cultivating
yes.
additional social support.
I have to sometimes not force myself, but I have to push myself sometimes to do it.
Okay.
But I realize just how important that network is.
Yeah.
And I think I've realized that even more with the bicycle accident,
Yeah.
of just how having a community, people around you, is crucial for getting through something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to extend it so that I don't feel like I'm the only woman on this trip. The other guys are just guys, and they're talking bicycle all the time, and they're in great shape.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
and I want to talk about something different than bicycles,
Well, Connie, we live in a culture for women in their wisdom years where as we age, we become invisible, right? Our voices, our presence is becomes more invisible, right? Supposedly irrelevant, right? How do you find that you're finding your voice with community and stepping into, to go on this trip to Italy is remarkable. How do you find your
think
voice to say, hey, I'm not invisible?
I think I've built up to that because
Yeah.
I went to Nepal for the second time last October with the same group I had gone
Yeah.
with before. And I participated in a couple other things where I'm always shocked that I'm the oldest person there.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't see myself as being old, but I'm realizing that I am an elder, And so it's kind of, how do I fit into that role?
An elder woman.
Yes. And what do I want to say to other women about being that elder who's doing that? And I'm realizing that in the Nepal group, there was a lot more personal connection, and women commenting on, when I'm your age, I want to be doing this, that kind of thing, and seeing me as a role model.
If this is what aging looks like, count me in.
And even some of the men. I mean, there was one of the Nepali man who was a acupuncturist who was along on the trip. He said to me, you're the age of my mom, and my mom sits in a chair all day long.
Okay.
And he said, it is so nice to see somebody your age who is out there doing it, even though it's hard for you.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went, okay.
What? I've been doing that. I've been doing that forever. So
Yeah.
how do you think
But-
you're doing with independence now?
Um, mostly okay. Okay. Mostly okay. I mean, there are times when I'm just like, we talked about this before. It's like, God damn it, Frank. Why did you leave me there? I'm the one that has to deal with
Yeah.
the washing machine that
Yeah.
doesn't work.
You
Or,
bastard.
you know,
Yeah.
because we used to share those
Yeah.
things. And it
Yeah.
was, you know, there are times when it's like, oh my God, I don't want to handle everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, please, somebody else handle it. And
Meaning Frank.
well, yeah. Well, one day, this past winter, and because I still work full time, I don't necessarily get out first thing in the morning and shovel the walkway. And sometimes the neighbors get a little upset with me that I have not shoveled the walkway. But, I'll shovel it when I get home.
You can.
So I was coming home at about probably 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm thinking, oh God, I wish somebody would shovel my walk. And I looked and somebody had shoveled my walk. I still don't know who had done it, but it was like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I live in a community that
Yeah.
does that kind of thing.
I felt cared for.
And I felt cared for it. And I was out there one day chipping ice, and a guy from across the street says, here, let me do it for you.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that I'm learning. I do not have to do it all.
And at every minute of the day.
Yeah. And I don't have to be the perfectionist of having everything done right away.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson for me.
That is a lesson for you.
It's a lesson for me.
Now, how have you done sort of with the range of emotions? And we talked a little bit about anger. Anger is not an emotion that women typically get permission to feel. And when we do feel it, we are the angry women. We are, or we get,
Frank
criticized. And
He hated my anger when my anger came up. He hated it.
Yeah, they struggle with it. But
yeah.
my question to you is how, and for women who I talk to in my work, they will say to me that they feel guilty or ashamed in their grief journey of having some anger at their partner who dared to leave. And so how do you do with that?
Well, I had an experience probably maybe a month or so ago. I was doing a writing exercise with this woman, and one of the questions that came up for me was, the question was, is there something in your ancestral path that you are working on correcting? And what came up for me, which totally caught me by surprise, was my father's mother had dementia, and her husband could not take care of her at home. And so she went to a nursing home. And she more or less turned her back on him and just said, why did you do this to me, kind of thing, and did not understand, made it very difficult. I don't understand the full story because I was
Young.
9, 10 years old,
Little girl
at the time. But I thought, I put Frank in a nursing home.
Yes.
And I got to thinking, gee, I wonder how he felt about that.
Yeah.
Because he was not, I couldn't have that kind of conversation with him at that
time. Yeah.
I think he understood why he was there, but I couldn't have the conversation of, well, how do you really feel about it? And so this woman who was leading this class, she said, well, ask him. So I had a conversation with him, and that was very helpful because it kind of helped me not feel like I had done something, not to feel guilty that I had said, okay, I want to live my life as well as taking care of him, but not give my life away to taking care of him. I was a part of a support group and I saw so many women just give up their
I
life
remember you said
to
that.
take care of their husbands. And I just said, I am not going to do that. And I was a lot younger than they were, in their stage with their spouses. But still, it just was not that. And I think at times I felt guilty that I had done that. And the response I got from Frank was more that, yeah, he wished he could have stayed home, but he also understood that it was not, it wasn't,
It wasn't working.
it wasn't working
Right.
when he was at home.
That's right.
And there's no way after he broke his hip that I would have been able to take care of him at home.
And you didn't want to, if I recall, start feeling resentment.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. And I had enough experience with taking care of my mother when she was declining to know that having caregivers that would wipe her bottom, take her to the bathroom, get her ready for bed, all that kind of stuff, I could still have a mother-daughter relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to have that kind of a relationship with Frank. Not that I was wiping his butt and changing
You
his
were able
diapers
to be
and-
his partner, his wife,
Yeah.
his friend, and not his nurse.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was important to me.
Yeah.
And I was able to say
And you
that
claimed it.
to him
Yeah.
in this dialogue.
Yeah.
And he recognized that, and I stopped feeling guilty.
Good for you.
You know,
Well, what have you had to let go of on this journey? What have you had to let go of in order to allow for new experiences or feelings, or what do you think you've left behind?
well, when he was in the nursing home, I had to. It was hard at different times. I had to accept that he did not necessarily know my name. When he would call me by name, it was very special, but it did not happen very often. But there still was a belly button to belly button connection that I recognized. He knew who I was. There was no doubt in my mind that he knew who I was. So it didn't matter whether he called me.
Whatever.
At one point, he called me, I forget the name, but in a lucid moment, he was able to tell me that it was his very first girlfriend. But I'm sitting there going, Frank, who is that? You have never mentioned her name to me before. So
Why now?
who was this?
Yes,
You know?
right, right. What is your relationship with Frank now?
Um,
Because I know it's ongoing.
I think I'm beginning to find more that I can kind of talk to him, or I think I said something to you not that long ago that I was beginning to, and I think I may have said it here already, that I'm beginning to find that I can look back on experiences we had together when he was totally present and, and not remember him sitting in that damn wheelchair,
That's right.
not being able to say anything to me, and that has been very good.
Helpful. So your memories have moved past when he was ill.
Right. Yes.
And
yes.
in a wheelchair in care, and you're able to remember him, recall him,
Yeah.
enjoy him
Yeah.
prior to
Yeah.
when he started to decline.
Yeah.
Do you still talk to him?
Sometimes,
Sometimes, yeah.
sometimes. Um, maybe not as much as would be possible, but I'm realizing that I think I want to more and more because um the bond of sharing with him is special, and so why not continue doing it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love
Yeah.
that. You know, hearing other women hearing you say that, giving permission to continue on that relationship and that it still exists for you and you
Yeah.
can claim that confidently without feeling silly or anything like that, and that you're still chatting with him is beautiful.
And
It's your way of doing things.
and if I've always felt like, okay, there's a door that's open. If somebody else walks into it that I find interesting and want to spend time with, I don't feel like there would be any animosity or a problem from Frank visiting me, or anything like that. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's not something I'm going to go out and search for
Right.
either.
Right. If it happens upon your doorstep, you'll consider possibilities.
I realize that there are things that I would like, um, and one of them is I miss touch.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to be sexual.
Let's
That's
talk about intimacy.
not it.
Yeah.
It's more, being able to reach out to somebody and put my arm around them and not have them freak out that I'm touching them.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you
or
do?
to get a hug back
Yeah.
or something like that. Sometimes I'm tentative, and often you can tell whether somebody's uncomfortable with it. Like my sister Ann is not a toucher. She's not a hugger.
I know that. Yeah.
And it's difficult
Yeah.
because I would love to tell her that I love her every time I talk with her on the phone. But that's just not her, so I don't do it.
Well, how have you navigated the void that you're in with intimacy with Frank? Physical touch, emotional touch. It's a big piece for women when it goes. And you're right, not necessarily sexual or could be sexual.
Well, on
How you
on
doing
this
that?
trip, for instance, I hit a wall at one point, and I was in tears, and the guy was behind me, and he wasn't really paying that much attention to me, and I was trying to, hide it, and because I was trying to decide whether I was going to ride in the van or not and give up struggling. And he just he looked at me, and I could tell he wasn't quite sure what to do. So in a way, I reached out and said, "Can I touch you?" And he said, "Sure." And he gave me a big hug,
Yeah.
and
Did that
let
help
me
you?
cry on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And
But here I want to jump in because this is important. You asked,
that
you made
yeah.
it known, and so that's a theme in this
Yeah.
conversation. Is you're very much again actively participating in cultivating your experience. Not that it's easy.
No, and I debate it, but I was pretty well, I was on hanging by a thread, and I
need a hug.
I needed the contact,
Yeah.
or I was going to go
Yeah.
in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've seen for myself, that if I don't ground myself in some way to another human being, I could go off
Right.
in not a good place.
You're very aware of yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How would you suggest to other women on this journey how to get to that space of being aware of what do I need and having the confidence to put word to it?
I think sometimes as women, we are not encouraged to trust our intuition. to trust that first thought that you have. We have a tendency to just shove that out of the way. Oh, that's not real, or I can't do
That's
that,
silly.
or
That's wrong.
you know, whatever. And I think that across time, I've learned that first reaction is often the most important thing I could do if I want to get out of or move on from the place I've gotten myself into.
Right.
Um, and you know, I'm even a person that does it at work, which sometimes I'm not sure people
Sometimes it works,
like
sometimes it
it,
doesn't.
but you know, a couple of my colleagues are very, very good and understanding, and they know that I'm alone,
Yeah.
and they have families and kids and all the rest. And there are times, sometimes when I come, like, I don't remember what was going on, but I was in a state, and I just reached out for a hug, and there it was, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't wait.
So no, I don't.
Yeah.
And you know, why am I that way? I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's helping you.
But I maybe it's that I've done it enough that I know that the end results are worth it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
talk to me about friendships.
um,
How have you been feeling in your friendships from the beginning to where you are now?
well, let's see. I shouldn't say always. My sister Anne, who is 2 years older than I am, we fought like cats and dogs as kids, but that's just natural. We did my mother's, we were executors of my mother's estate. She had lost her husband a while back, so she's a single
Yep.
woman. Um, and you know, we got close again doing that and working on that. And she is, I don't want to say she's unemotional, that isn't it, but she's incredibly practical.
Okay.
Um, and she was my rock through this thing, mostly with Frank. I mean, one day I just, you know, I could not get him into bed, and he was so exhausted, and I was so frustrated, and I finally just said, "God damn it, get the into bed," you know, and I pushed him, and I pushed him rather hard.
Yeah.
He hit the bed and was sound asleep. But I went downstairs and I'm like,
Oh.
I was gonna kill him, you know.
Yeah.
And I called my sister, and she could talk me down.
Yeah.
And so that friendship in particular has been
Has transformed.
incredibly important to me.
Do you need something different now in your friendships?
I think so.
Okay.
And again, I think it's more that I not have to, but I want to make time, because I still work. A lot of my friends are retired.
Yep.
Or they work a different kind of job, so it's not a 9 to 5 kind of thing. And so I think I have to reach out more to make those connections with people.
Right.
And that's really important to me, and I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I find ways to do
make
that,
it
to
happen.
go knock on somebody's door or something like that.
Right.
And I think that's more important to me now that I don't have Frank.
More time spent with friends.
Yeah, and Um, I think some of it is knowing when I need something like that and creating, let's go out to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And knowing when you don't.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, so I think I just also know the older I get that friendship is incredibly important, but you have to cultivate it.
Yeah.
You can't just expect that it's going to be there.
Right.
Um, and I think people expect that it will be there. And I think sometimes, again, the support group that I was in, I would hear these women say, "All my friends have left me alone. They don't understand. They don't want to have anything to do with me." La da da. And I almost felt at times I wanted to say to them, "Well, how hard have you tried to really get them to understand what you need, rather than just say, oh, they won't listen to me,
Or, yeah, they won't understand.
and they won't understand, or because I think people don't know how to respond. They just don't know how to respond.
And it's hard because being around you, who for some of your friends can also tap into their own feelings of mortality,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Yes.
hard to be with someone who's in such
Yeah.
pain because it makes us sort of want to not be around it,
Yeah.
right? But you have reached out, you continue to cultivate the relationships. Is there any relationships that you decided this is no longer serving me now that I feel differently? And being single in
Well,
couples.
I mean, very, very good friend of mine, I had a clash with her partner, and I have not totally gotten over that.
Yeah.
He was off the wall with me, just totally off the wall. Um, but he is very kind and gentle, and treats her better than any of the men that I've seen her with before. So I respect that. But I don't have the same desire to, say, invite the two of them to dinner or something like that.
It shifted.
She and I have a tendency to go do things together.
Yeah.
I just don't quite trust him not to turn on me like that.
Yeah. Good instincts.
And that one bothers me to some extent,
Yeah.
because I would like to be closer to him.
Yeah.
Because she's
Close to you.
close to him, and
Are you feeling any level of discomfort or self-consciousness being the single friend now? Because you do have couple friendships, couples. Does it feel awkward to you?
sometimes it does. But I think with the people that I've known, that we worked on houses together
Yep.
here, and I've known them for 40 years. There's a lot that we can say to each other
Mm-hmm.
that most friendships can't say to each other.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
and I did something that was foolish a while back when I had been exposed to COVID, and I didn't think I had it. I tested it, but I went and had dinner with friends, and a couple of them got really mad at me that I showed up because I had cold, and I probably should have stayed home. But I was able to say to them I was desperate for company.
Yeah.
And that's why I did it. And I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But, I could say that to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Was it
Because of the
awkward for
history.
a while? Yeah, it was awkward for a while.
Yeah.
But because of the history, I could do that.
Yeah.
Some other people I couldn't have done that with.
Been that honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are you looking forward to? Even if are you looking forward to something that's happening now, or even something that's a dream or a hope for the future? What is something that you're just excited about?
I think I'm excited that, I did this trip.
It's big.
And it almost feels like I could tackle
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Um,
You
and
bring this up. I want to say something. You bring it up. It's like I love I call it the chest puff, right? Women don't get an opportunity
Yeah.
to puff their chests enough. Like, look what I just did. Not in a bragging way,
Yeah.
but in
Yeah.
a look what I just did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the energy.
huge.
It's
It's
huge.
huge.
It's huge. And the lessons that you took from
Yeah.
it were enormous.
One of my dreams, and whether I actually do it or not is another thing. I'm not making it that I have to do it.
Right.
Is
Just like your dream.
I've set up my car so I can sleep in my car and I can put the bike on the back. And I want to travel around I work 4 days and then I work 5 days. So I have a 3-day weekend. And so I'm hoping that maybe I could go somewhere on a Thursday night, you know, ride my bike on a rail trail, just go travel that way.
Yeah.
Um,
More adventure.
yeah. Eventually, an idea I have, and whether, because I'm not retired yet, but I have cousins and friends all across the US, and I would love to go visit them all.
Yeah.
And just bounce around and do that.
Yeah. I see it.
And now that I don't have anybody in the house or anything in the house because I lost my last 2 cats in the last 3 months, and I'm not sure I'm gonna add another animal because it gives me the freedom to just take off and not have to worry about care for the kitties.
That's a lot of loss in a year.
Yeah.
Your 2 cats,
Yeah.
and Frank, and they were very much a part of your family. You have the 2 of you. How are you
Yep.
coping with that, with the quiet in the house? They're such a little, they're tiny, but their presence is enormous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still look for
Ah,
the last one on the sofa when I go go to bed at night and I turn the light out and I almost go, "Bye, Andy," or "Good night, Andy." Well, Andy's not there, but it's almost that way. It's tough. I miss him. I would love to have another critter in the house,
Yeah.
but if I want to travel the way I want to travel, the added expense of caring,
right.
having somebody care for
Right.
a pet while I'm gone, and to leave them alone for
Oh,
3 weeks
yeah, no,
is just
doesn't
not
right.
not
Yeah.
right. So
It's a lot of goodbyes
yeah,
in 1 year for
Yeah.
you.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, looking at will I or won't I retire in the next year or so? And I don't have an answer.
But you're asking questions.
But I'm looking at how can I continue to keep the friendships and the connections I have at work, and do some of the projects that I've got started and want to finish, but without making it, you know, sometimes 9 to 5 is like,
Yeah.
at
At this point,
and so I'm trying to sort that out.
would leaving work, leaving your position feel like another goodbye? How is it tying into your grief journey?
It probably would, because right now that's where I have a lot of connection because I see people all the time.
Yeah.
And without that connection, I'm not sure whether I would hole up in the house, or I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Financially, I don't have to rely on it, but it's really nice because I can
Yeah.
spend money traveling and not worry about things. There's the possibility that I could go and work 70% time.
Okay.
And I may, once I hit my 20 years, I may do that.
Yeah.
Because then I wouldn't have to work such long days. And
So will this answer come to you then in the way things do?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you'll get with it.
And there may be just a time when I say I'm done.
Yeah.
Work has been difficult in some ways because we had a really difficult situation with the director.
Yeah.
And he's no longer there, and we're in the process of hiring a new person. And so some of my staying on and doing what I'm doing will depend on how that goes. If it turns out to be something that doesn't work for me, then
Then you'll go.
then I'll just say,
Yeah.
well, no, I don't need this.
Yeah.
You know. So
So more adventure you're
Yeah.
looking forward to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how do you think the sort of the evolution of when Frank first passed to where you are now? Who are you now without Frank at this point? What would you say?
I think I'm a more mature person of who I was before I met Frank.
So more of an
So,
evolution of what was already
I
there.
knew I lived on my own I didn't get married until I was 31 or 2. I don't remember exactly how old, but so I had lived on my own for a while, worked on my own, paid my bills myself, all that stuff. So being on my own that way now is not something,
It's not unusual.
it's not unusual for
Yeah.
me. But I have the years of experience and I hope a little wisdom, behind me to then say, okay, what do I want to do now?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that we haven't even really touched on, but Frank was very involved with Veterans for Peace and political things and all the rest. He would just be a mess now with the situation that we're in.
He would be out of his mind.
And I haven't found my avenue into what do I want to do about the current situation? How do I want to respond? Because I feel strongly enough that I can't just shut my eyes and say it'll go away. But I haven't figured out what I want, where I want to fit in with that.
And I think a lot of people are feeling that, and it changes, and we do what we can when we feel like we can.
Yeah.
But how has the current political nightmare affected your grief journey? How has it influenced your experience this way?
It's made me glad that he died when he did.
Oh, he would.
And that he didn't have to see, what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Gaza, all that stuff. He did not have to see it. He didn't have to see the jerk that's taken over. And
I was with Frank when the jerk was here the first time around in 2016.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah. And a lot of people are struggling with, when we go through personal challenges, when we are in a private time that's difficult and the outer world is a disaster, right? It hits different.
And I don't feel like I'm beating myself up because I'm not doing things. I have gone to a couple of rallies and things like that, where I felt like I had the energy and I could and that and I will continue in that way. But I haven't quite found my place yet. Um, whether I do or not, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think keeping it open to moving
yeah.
around, right? Some days you feel like you have energy to fix
Yeah.
it. Other
Yeah.
days it's, oh my gosh, I can't even look at this.
I'm concerned. There are particular areas that I'm concerned with, and if I could concentrate on those in some way, and I am disgusted with how little respect there is currently for history, preservation, libraries, museums, art,
Music. Yeah.
music, all of that that depend on, you know, government support.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough money as a population to keep many of these things running on our own. Some of the billionaires in this world could help, but I think that's an area that I might want to see what I could do, and particularly after coming back from such an ancient country as
With the art
Italy,
history.
with the art history, the medieval art, my God, how long these communities have existed, and then they've built over this, they've built over that, but underneath are these layers and layers and layers of, BC ruins and things like that. It's just like, what are we doing here?
Do you find that it's harder when you're feeling hard emotions? What's going on in the world? Does it make the grieving feel heavier or different?
I think right now it's more that I feel relieved he's not here.
He's not here to see it. Yeah.
You know?
I feel that way about my parents.
And
That they're
I
not here to be looking at this.
I wish we could have the conversations that we used to have, but I don't wish that as much as I'm relieved that I don't have to see him suffer with what he would be feeling for what he would be seeing, you know. He took his oath as a military person to defend the Constitution, both here and abroad, very seriously. And to see someone else who doesn't give a damn about it would just make him really, really upset.
It would cause him a lot of despair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What advice would you give a woman starting out on this journey who's in that disorientation phase and who wants to consider the possibility that grief and growth can be carried along the same path?
well, what jumps to mind for me would be if you can find a group of people that are going through similar things and be willing to open up and talk. When I first joined the Alzheimer dementia support group, I thought, oh, this isn't for me. But I was very grateful in the long run for what I was able to share and learn and see from what other people were going through. And I think that can be very helpful to somebody, that to be able to see that you're not alone, that you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to hole up in your house and that's the only place you can find protection. I also think if you have one person that you consider a really good friend that you can open up to, and that is willing to listen to you and that you're willing to listen back. That's an important piece. You can't just dump everything on someone else and expect them to want to get together with you again.
Right.
Um, I think those kinds of things would be helpful.
More community.
Yeah.
More community. And speaking of holing up in your house, so we talked about your house. This home is a home that you built with Frank over the years. Tell me about how important it is for you to be in this space and what kind of comfort it brings to you.
Well, it's interesting because various different people have said, that's such a big house for you all by yourself. Why, why don't you go get a different house someplace?
Why don't you
And-
downsize?
Yeah, and my mind was kind of, well, that's tempting. But there's a couple things in it that just don't work for me. My friends all live in this area. If I moved someplace else, I would not have that support.
Oh gosh.
So there's that. And then fairly recently, I realized that this house is what Frank left me as a container for me to be in and to be safe in and to, feel good in, with all this stuff that's here that, has different stories from both of us, experiences and trips that he shared together. And I'm grateful for that.
Brings you comfort.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Being here.
Yeah. Whether I move at some point, I don't know. I keep thinking it would be fun to live in a tiny house someplace.
Yeah. You're going to live in your car.
So,
Yeah.
But it's that when I thought of that brought a lot of comfort to me, to think that I'm not sure he consciously thought that when we were building the house. Because it is something that we did together, but I couldn't have done it without him. And, so he built this house for us.
Yeah. And it feels like a hug.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
It's beautiful. What do you miss about Frank?
Oh, his smile and his blue eyes.
Right. His twinkle.
Yeah. He would light up like a Christmas tree when I would go into the nursing home, and he just, that smile and twinkle in his eyes, and that would make it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the time that he was there was only once that I really felt he had no idea who I was.
Right.
And that was very close to the end. So I'm grateful that he chose to step out of this world when he did, because I think it would have been very hard to go see him if he did not know who I was.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. Very painful.
yeah.
What keeps you awake at night? What still scares you?
Oh God. Oh, how do I describe it? I think what keeps me up at night is when I start worrying about something. Like, how am I going to do this? Or is this going to work? Or, can I do that? Or, and they're not even necessarily realistic concerns, but sometimes it just runs a loop in my mind.
How can I do it all?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be what keeps you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you do with it? How do you navigate that?
sometimes I get up and do something else.
Yeah.
You know, I just sometimes count sheep and pray that I will eventually fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes I don't get much sleep.
Yeah. Such is life. Is that how you're feeling about it?
And it feels mostly okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 What were the overall, I mean, Italy sounds like it was really just cathartic and just a huge personal journey that I think those journeys we don't even always anticipate what's to come, right? But
I had no idea.
tell me about the tears on the trip.
They had to do with a couple different things when there was a couple times that I went through it. And it was, oh my God, I'm 76 years old. I'm going to be 77 and I can't do this anymore.
Okay.
And that was heartbreaking to me. And, thankfully there were enough people around me who kept saying, this was a difficult trip that you took on. You don't have to take that kind of difficult thing on and you can still do it. And that was helpful, but I think it was that seeing my own vulnerability in terms of age and recognizing that I sometimes need to recognize I'm not 30 years old, and that not that I won't stop doing things, but I think that I need to be maybe a little bit more realistic sometimes than I have been.
Yeah.
Um, I have another long trip planned in the end of August, beginning of September, but um, it's not on a bicycle. It's not that kind of thing. And I think it will go okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So all of this, and you still planned another trip?
yeah,
Okay. So you're going to keep going.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it sounds like your journey of transformation has been pretty purposeful,
yeah,
intentional,
I think so.
conscious.
Yeah. Um,
What do you do on those days where it's just, I can't even get the hell out of bed?
I watch television.
So you allow it.
I get lost in some.
There you go.
I binge watch some stupid program.
Perfect. Perfect.
And
You
I
allow
have a
it.
puzzle that I'm making
Yeah.
upstairs. I listen to, because of my eye, I find it hard to read
Yeah.
at night. So I listen to books, and I lose myself into
Yeah.
sexy novels sometimes, and,
Right. But you know what I'm hearing there is that you allow the range of emotions. I don't,
Yeah.
and do you judge yourself at all? Like if you say, I can't get out of bed today's a day I'm gonna chill out and not even see the world. Do you ever judge that, or do you allow for it?
I'm getting better at allowing
Mhm.
for it. Like yesterday, I had a couple things I had to do, and then I just said, I'm going home, going to bed.
Yeah.
And I lay on the sofa and went to sleep. And I had theater tickets last night and I went. But I gave myself that time to just
Right. Right.
not do anything.
To be.
Yeah.
You know, I think about our talk today, and what sticks out for me is that you do participate in your journey. And you allow the journey to play out however it feels good for you at any given time. Right. It moves.
And it's okay with me. Was I a little embarrassed when I was crying on this trip? Not really.
Oh.
It was like, holy crap,
Look at me.
this is where I am, and the guys were they were really good about it. So, I mean, they could have made it difficult for me, and they didn't.
Mhm.
And yes, I know I'm a client of theirs, and so they have to treat me in a certain way.
Right.
But they went beyond that and were very kind. And they were proud of me when I got through
We all
the
are.
end,
What have
So
you discovered about yourself since Frank's passing? Talents, capabilities, passions that maybe lie dormant or weren't able to be tapped into because you were busy making a life as a partner.
I'm not particularly sure that there's much of that because Frank gave me such freedom to be who I was.
Oh, that's beautiful, Kai.
And so um did it give us problems at times? Sure it did. Um but I think we learned to work through that. And thank God for therapists that are good. uh, that can help people through those rough places.
Yeah.
Um I think it's it's impossible. Maybe impossible isn't the right word, but I'm going to use it. I think it's impossible to do it on your own, totally on your own.
Yeah.
We need other
And not
people around
necessary.
us.
Not necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need other people. We need connections. We need that. It's to feel like you have to do it all yourself. It's like, no way.
It's far too overwhelming.
Yeah.
But you have given yourself from the time Frank passed up and through now. It feels like there's a theme of permission. Like you have given yourself permission to feel what you feel, do
Yeah.
what you want, be where you're at,
Yeah.
need what you need. And that to me is a big piece of wisdom that any woman could take from your journey.
And I think it's that trusting that intuition, trusting that gut reaction you have when you see something and you go, oh, gee, I'd like to do that. Pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Pay attention to it.
Yeah.
It may not be something you can do right away, but pay attention.
Let
to
it light a
that.
spark.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But being a learner, being new at something, when you're vulnerable, when you're going through a personal challenge or a personal journey of discovery is not easy.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable again with what am I doing on this bike? Well, who the hell am I? Right. I mean, it's remarkable, your strength, but I think you said something beautiful is that Frank, and I can attest to this, has always been your biggest fan.
Yeah.
And has always given you space and permission. Not to say things, where every marriage has its thing.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
always gave your permission for you to fly. And I think he got joy
He did.
from your flight.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's only one time in the travel that I was doing that he, it was when my friend was killed in
He was worried
Afghanistan.
about you. Yeah.
And he said, you get your ass home right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I, backed off
Mhm.
a bit and said, oh God, I can't leave right now. But I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And the next day when I talked to him, he said, I know you're there for a reason. I know you need to be there, but come home as soon as you can.
Oh,
And that helped a great deal.
yeah. Again, permission
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
in this family of yours has always
Yeah.
been a big piece.
Yeah.
And I hear you giving women who are on this same journey a ton of permission through our conversation today.
Yeah. It just, guilt is there, but don't give in to it if you can. It's not worth it. It's just not. There's always something else underneath that is better to find out what that is and experience that. even if it means you cry for 2 days,
Yeah.
3 days, 4 days.
A month, a year,
You
so
know,
be it.
I was married to this man for 45 years. That's a long time. And, do I have regrets? Well, not really.
Connie, you are such an inspiration. I mean, really, you are. And I think the point of really wanting to talk to you today was I think we need to talk about this more. Allowing most women, if their partner married, have a spouse, they will end up being the ones left.
Yeah.
Women outlive men, typically in a heterosexual relationship, in a heterosexual marriage. Right. So there's so many women out there in this situation who everything shifts, everything about your life and your day shifted.
Yeah.
And to hear another
Yeah.
woman out there saying, "Hey, you get to navigate this however feels right."
And it's okay to be angry. That why the fuck
Fuck
am I
did you
stuck
leave?
with all of this? One of my friends at Frank's Memorial, and he had told me this before, and I go back to it every once in a while because it was something I was doing without even being aware that I was doing it. And he said that, you're the first one in our community group that has gone through
A loss.
this kind of loss.
Yeah.
And he said, you did it with such grace that you created a good model for the rest of us and how it could be done. And I'm very touched by that because it was not in my purpose to do that. It was just,
The wisdom is extraordinary. And when women are grieving, the tendency is move along, have your grief,
Yeah.
be quiet about it, tamp it down.
and
And
I had my times when, oh my God, I haven't visited him enough.
yeah, at the nursing home.
There would
Yeah.
always be that.
Yeah.
That kind of would go on. But I wanted the visits that I did have with him to be not productive, but meaningful.
Yeah.
Rather than pro forma, I got to go see him every day.
Out of obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were times he wanted me to stay longer and all the rest, and I couldn't, for one reason or another. And he accepted that, and it worked out okay. So
How do you do with embracing and enjoying the freedom that comes from moving on?
riding my bike downhill and going, oh, this is fantastic. I said to Ricardo one day, I said, I'm going to scream in a minute. I'm fine.
I love that.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm just
But-
letting it out.
but it was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah. So so you feel that sometimes,
Yeah.
that joy of
Yeah.
the freedom that you're
Yeah.
able to have
Yeah.
now,
and it was,
and you
like,
don't judge it.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I really am doing this, and that was great.
I love that.
He also got a kick out of me because at one point I had to go to the bathroom. There were just some bushes, but on the other side of the bushes was this path. People couldn't come along anyway, but the road was right over here. I had to go to the bathroom. So I just said, I'm going to disappear for a minute. I just went, and he said something about it earlier. He said, you just took care of yourself. And I said, how many times did you not see me do that when I was doing that?
There's a freedom that comes with age.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And it was just like, I don't care if somebody sees me. I don't want to wet my pants,
Let it go. Yeah, let it go.
So,
Not judging yourself and not caring about being judged by others.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there were times with the second guy that was with us, I still don't know what he thought of me. And in some
Cares.
ways, it bothered me a little, but in other ways, it's like, I'll never see him again. So,
Thank you so much
yeah.
for talking with us today. I just love this. I just love you. I'm so excited. Thank you. It's been a long time coming to be invited into your home.
Asking me to do it.
You are,
It helps me to talk about it. To when you ask the questions, I have to think about why do I do that or how do I do that? And I think that can be helpful to other people. And, some of it just comes to me, but
thank you. I love that. Beautiful story.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
My money's on you, Connie. Always has been.
That's good. That's good.